Thank you so much, Anne. I am thrilled that Sandra is here today. Sandra Rosales is the Sustainability Programs Division Manager for Pima County. Sandra is a Kenyan-born climate adaptation and environmental scientist currently working in Pima County. And I know from her bio that she really is interested in combining different, disciplines, getting us out of the silo. So she brings experience as an atmospheric scientist in, modeling future climate scenarios, which inspired her to become a practitioner in the field of climate adaptation, beginning with indigenous communities in Louisiana. So Pima County has passed a climate resolution that Sandra's going to talk about. They just passed this in May. So I am feeling very fortunate that we were able to get Sandra here already. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm not ready to talk about that yet, but Sandra was, and I am really excited. So Sandra has called this intentional implementation, which she's going to be talking about today. And I'm just really thrilled to have her here. So Sandra, please add anything else about yourself that you think we should know. And thanks again.
Thanks, Jenny, and thanks, Anne and Lisa, so much for having me here. Um, you said that I was ready. I really haven't been. Like, Anne has been asking me for so long to come, and I'm like, just give me like just a couple more, just a little bit longer. And I'm finally here, so I'm excited to be here. But just to let you know, I am pretty new to the sustainability scene. So I've been working at Pima County for only 3 years. I'm still a baby compared to a lot of my colleagues. And I just stepped into the manager role only a couple months ago. I don't know, some of you might have known Julie Robinson. She was in that manager position, but now she's joined a Friends of Tucson organization called Mission Gardens, more so pursuing her passion field. So I'm really happy for her for that. So I'm a newbie to all of this, but I do know that I just have this love for bringing people together of different expertises and different knowledge bases. So seeing this group here, I don't even know like most of you, but it's so great. You want me to just go ahead and get started? Okay, cool. I shall get this when I get a nice full screen mode so you don't see all my other tabs. Okay, so yeah, I am excited to finally talk about Pima County breaking through that brick wall of what to do when it comes to needing to implement and actually go for some heavy hitting strategies when it comes to reaching the targets and goals of our plan, whether it's not everyone, but a lot of people have different plans. And I just feel like it's gotten to a point now where they can't be symbolic anymore, and we actually have to get to work on it. And so I have been a fighter my entire life to get to where I am. So fighting and persistence have helped me help the county get to this point. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about kind of the background, some of the events that have occurred to get to this point of actually reaching to a place of intentional implementation. And then I will talk about like the current efforts right now and kind of the direction that we're headed in. So very brief background for anyone who does not know. Pima County basically started their work with SAPCO, so the Sustainability Action Plan for County Operations, which is internally focused on our operations. And so that started back in 2005. So we've had a long journey for quite some time. 2007 was the very first SAPCO that came out. And since then, they've kind of been coming out in 5-year increments. come through 2017, we had the Paris Agreement signed back in the day, when we were signed at that time. And the Board of Supervisors recognized that this is definitely an opportunity for the county to get to that next level of planning. And so they went ahead and passed two climate resolutions back in 2017. So what that did was essentially spawn this brand new updated SAPCO, which was for the 5-year span of 2018 to 2025. At the time, the Paris Agreement, specifically for the carbon reductions goals, was the 26 to 28% below 2005 levels. So that's what that 2018 plan was based on. And so in that plan, kind of redesigned things. There was this very succinct, like 5-chapter theme that our goals and targets fit under. We did targets and goals based on carbon, water, landscapes, materials, and workforce. So everything from carbon reduction to water use reduction to the amount of waste that we use, reducing that. And then because our department, the Office of Sustainability and Conservation, has such an amazing history, starting with the Sonoran Conservation Plan, landscapes was very important. So whether it's about planting trees, just maintaining and monitoring our groundwater, there's a lot in that chapter. That being said, we reached another point where an update was needed. So back in February, hopefully most of you know, the IPCC released AR6. And so as a climate scientist, I like eat these for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I was super excited that finally, the climate science community was actually trying to push through these messages of urgency that that we need to get to work. Like, we need to stop messing around. This is serious. Like, our window is, we had one, but now it's rapidly closing and we need to get to work. And one of the major things that was portrayed and stated in the report is that, yes, reducing our emissions needs to be done, but now we're entering into this new phase of really needing to tackle climate adaptation methods and strategies. The language back in the day was climate mitigation and climate adaptation. So what are we doing to reduce our emissions? And then what are we doing to adapt? But now with this new report, the language was more accessible to the public, to a wider audience. We're now, instead of mitigation and adaptation, we're moving towards risk reduction and increasing our resiliency. So when I saw this report, I had a field day. I was so excited because I felt like I had a chance, an opportunity as a climate scientist to speak up. And it wasn't just my little voice saying something, but it is a global consensus behind me saying that we need to get to work. So this is where the fight started to happen. We were going through that transition with Julie leaving, and it was a big, like, moment of like, okay, like, what do we do? Like, do I also go? Do I stay? But this has been like my life's work, and I left the hard science climate research field because I wanted to do work that would actually make an impact on the local level. I was pretty tired of writing journal articles and speaking in conferences. I just I just wanted to actually reach the people, reach the public, and create awareness of what is actually happening and then actually help communities to prepare. So the work began there. So we started to move pretty rapidly and quickly after that point. After I presented this report and was like, hey, it's not just me, like we need to get to work. Our leadership team at that point had decided, okay, looks like we need to take another look at SAPCO. I'm like, yes, yes, you do. So that ended up resulting in this whole county-wide audit that we ran in March. And it was quite the effort where we sent every department director, so we have 33, 34 departments, this fillable PDF that was quite fun to make. I wanted to make sure that getting their feedback was as easy as possible. One of a big thing that I've learned is, especially when you're wanting feedback from leadership, especially, you need to make everything as easily accessible as possible. So we sent over basically like, there's a picture of it here, this fillable form that goes through every single target of SAPCO and then lists every single strategy. There are 90 strategies. It is, there are a lot. And it was a lot of effort that Julie Robinson had actually coordinated in order to get everyone coming to come together and actually choose and talk about how the county can actually reach the targets. So these strategies didn't just come out of thin air. It was just meeting upon meetings, like over 160 meetings trying to coordinate this list of strategies. It became a laundry list, 90 strategies. So the audit basically asked directors to let us know which of these strategies are being implemented, made it very easy. Just put a little check mark, let us know if this is something that you're doing in your department, in that kind of first box there. And then we had more of an open response for them. We wanted to know if there were any other strategies outside of the 90 strategies that were listed in SAPCO, if there's anything else that the department was doing. And then the last question, which was really of great interest to our county administrator, was what are the challenges and barriers? Like, why, if there's these strategies, if you did not check them, why have you not actually been able to implement them? So we put all of this together in a lovely report. And I have a link at the end of the presentation, and I can drop it in the chat a little later to our webpage that has like everything, all the results, the report, everything that I'm talking about. It's on our webpage. So basically, we put together this monstrous report that put together the results of the audits, created some massive tables that just compiled all the director responses. We also wanted to make sure that we showed the progress that we were making in accordance with that current SAFCO, making slash not making. So we also did a multi-jurisdictional comparative review where we looked at different cities and counties that were putting forth sustainability efforts to see where those efforts were, what they were doing, how they were funding them. Definitely a great resource that we're also using in our current efforts that I'll talk about a little later. And then we did the final piece to our report was the recommended next steps. I will not go through what those recommended next steps are because yay, the new climate resolution got passed, and that resolution basically was authorizing in prioritizing most of our recommended next steps, which was awesome. Um, so what we have going on now, that resolution was passed in May. I've been under a rock and in a cave since then, trying to figure out a plan forward of how to actually make all these things come to be. But I'll just go through them. So basically, first and foremost, we are extending our plan out to 2030. It seems to be the year, whether 2030, 2050, that a lot of plans are extending out towards now. And not only that, but now we're more in line with the actual US NDC, the nationally determined contribution, where before it was the 26 to 28% of carbon emissions reduction to now 50%. So we are now adopting that as our carbon reduction goal. And again, that's all below our 2005 levels. So given that major change, you might see in the language of the resolution that they wanted us to create a climate action plan for county operations. They wanted to call it CAPCO. And I'm like, that's really cute. But it really messes up with the brand that we already have going on. So I fought for that as well and asked that how about we keep SAFCO's name because that's what's been known in the network, but we rebrand it as a climate action plan. So in our SAFCO update, which hopefully will get out by the beginning of next year, you'll see SAFCO, the climate action plan, like just as a as a subtitle. But basically, we did that because we noticed that in times where we had to present our work or talk about our work externally, we had a lot of questions of people asking, oh, do you guys have a climate action plan? And we would say, we have SAFCO, which is a plan. And they're like, no, but your climate action plan. And we're like, SAFCO. So we just realized that we need to change the language so that it is more easily recognizable as a climate action plan, since that's what's being done these days. So in that list of what is being authorized, we are now looking at high priority strategies, and around the Pima County and the groups that we're working with, we are calling those our big fixes. So these are the strategies that now require us to dig into our pockets, the thing that most people don't want to do, where a lot of hesitation comes when it comes to heavy implementation strategies. So that is where we are right now, is we actually have a list, a big fix list, and now we are prioritizing them. And I'll talk more about that a couple slides from now. Some other things. So I was pretty much a little behind the scenes, being the data analyst. And so at that time when I was not brave enough to speak up as the climate scientist, I was just being the data analyst. So one thing I did notice was we had this amazing and robust way to monitor and evaluate our progress for SAPCO. So we would put out these annual reports. We were able to calculate our emissions. And I realized that prior to me, and I guess when SAPCO was being developed, we're just picking and choosing how we wanted to measure, how we wanted to report out from ICLEI's LGOP, their local government operations protocol. So that is pretty much one of the major resources for greenhouse gas inventories. And so I had recommended that we more so conform our reports to that. So if you looked at our previous annual reports, they don't actually report out like scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions. I suggested that we should start doing that now, just so we can be more conventional in our reporting methods. So that is what that is about. And then we have some internal uh, basically education and outreach programs and efforts that I'll talk more about. Our Green Stewards program, they want us to launch that, and that's basically Pima County's green team. And then we actually had developed a climate change 101 course that we have called Thrive. So all these things and a couple more things actually are on the climate resolution, and that was our roadmap moving forward. It was super, super exciting. So where we are right now is looking at a top down and bottom up approach. Was not actually considered that at first, but after the fact we realized that's what we were doing. So from top down, we're basically going through this process that we're calling the path to implementation. We have our county leaders and major operational department directors part of this SAPCO leadership team. So we have like our facilities, our transportation, our fleet, and as well as some county administration. And they are part of this team that is responsible for looking at those big fixes, looking at what strategies are to be implemented year to year, prioritizing them. So they're our leadership in this implementation effort. And we have the pleasure of having Kathy Jacobs at the University of Arizona facilitating this process along with her coordinator, Neha Gupta. It's really funny. The leadership tried to emphasize like, we could do this. Like we definitely are capable of doing this on our own, but it's definitely best that we have people to help us coordinate these efforts. And I am so glad that they said yes to having Kathy and Neha facilitate our conversations, because in the past several months, and especially towards the beginning of the passing of the resolution, everyone was really excited. Leadership actually was really on board, and we put everyone together, started to have these conversations, but there were conversations that were just going round in circles. Like we get so ramped up about these exciting new things, and it's easy, super easy to just talk about it, but actually to get to the point where the talk becomes your walk, we needed some assistance. So I'm so glad that we have Kathy and Neha. So that's our top down, and I'll actually talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. And then our bottom up approach. So just as important as having leadership support role, we also need a workforce, which I heard was like 6,000 or so employees. I had no idea. So we also need a workforce that is as knowledgeable, as supportive of these efforts. So it is not something that's coming from leadership and is being forced upon the workforce that doesn't really care, doesn't really know. It's not in my backyard. I don't have to do this. We wanted to address that because that was actually one of the big barriers and challenges to implementation that we saw. That not in my backyard, it's not my problem, not my issue. Don't really know how to, don't really know what I can do to help. So we definitely recognize that an education, a strong education effort was needed. So we have Thrive, which is that climate change 101 course. Green Stewards now is going to be our green team. And that was all in collaboration with our Mrs. Green's World, which is our contractor. Maybe you know Gina Murphy Darling. She is really amazing at kind of doing that change on a personal level, and has actually helped coordinate green teams and bring up green teams at TEP, Chapman Automotive here in Tucson, and some in other major organizations. So we're lucky to have her. And then we had someone at the university actually help develop the course. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about each effort, a little bit more about each effort, since this is what the title of the presentation was about. So the path to implementation, it is an extremely ambitious a goal. So basically, we started this a couple weeks ago. It was with that SAPCO leadership team that I had mentioned, with our major operational directors and county administration, facilitated by Kathy and Neha. And it was great to hear that there was a sense of urgency that we needed to get on this as soon as possible. Now, when they said that we need to have strategies to implement next fiscal year by November, I was like, oh, okay, that's gonna be fun. Let's figure this out. So fortunately, with Kathy and Neha's help, we came up with this pretty intensive timeline where every other week we are tackling something to get to the point of having strategies that can be implemented the next fiscal year and hopefully the fiscal year after that. All of this is being hinged on a workshop that they want to put on mid-October, where all directors at that point come in and help to prioritize strategies. So even though, yes, it's important to have our leadership on board, the main SAPCO leadership team, we're working on our workforce, but at the same time, the directors of all the other departments, like let's say like our elections department or our schools superintendent, or any other departments that might not necessarily feel like they have anything major to contribute to this, we want to bring them into this process and into this workshop that they have planned. And that's also very important, because it's, again, trying to avoid the conflict of getting orders from above and then making it seem like it's a chore or a burden, versus something that you as the director are embracing and actually championing in your own department. So I'm really excited to see what that workshop, how that is going to play out. But in so far, it's been amazing. These meetings that we've had have been very productive. I will say that you most definitely need a strong voice if you're ever to put leadership like this together to help lead the conversations. And Kathy Jacobs has been just that, where the direction of every meeting has gone towards the actual objectives. It's only an hour, yet we're able to accomplish so much. So like our last meeting that we had last week, we identified some of the metrics and criteria that we're going to use to prioritize a strategy. So things like how much time is going to be invested, for how much staff time is going to be invested, what is the return on investment, things regarding like technical feasibility, like how long will this strategy take to actually implement, what's the funding situation, is it something that we can do, like get funding for now or later. We went through a lot of different criteria, things that I don't have right now to show you, but hopefully I'll be able to show that with you, share that with you at another time, or you can just email me and I'll share that with you. So yeah, so all of that right now is focused on this very short term implementation schedule. Again, we're looking to uh, actually put out and implement these strategies for the next 2 fiscal years, while at the same time planning for a more phased implementation for like the last 5 years of SAPCO. So for the 2025 to 2030. So we're working on that piece as well. Um, yeah, so I will actually, one of the things that I forgot to mention was I had like ICLEI to be determined as a collaborator. If you are not already a member of their network, you should totally do that. I have researched and taken a look at what they have to offer, their tools, their resources, and it's something that I'm working on right now, trying to convince leadership to become a member of. And especially when it comes to needing to prioritize strategies, see their impacts on your goals and targets for further out in the future. They have this tool called the Clear Path tool, which has some great modeling and forecasting capabilities. Definitely something good to have in your toolbox. And if there's anything else out there, though, like please let me know that we can check out. But because we're moving in such a short timeline, and I say we, like everybody, now is the point where we can't be trying to just create our own effort and do things from scratch. Like use the resources that are already there. Don't reinvent the wheel. We don't have time. So when we talked about the top down, again there's a bottom up approach. So this is about more of the bottom up programs that we're also implementing. So as I mentioned, Thrive is that self-paced climate course. It was actually a live learning workshop that we did it was a pilot that we did 1 year. COVID came and just wrecked it all. Where we wanted to then implement it following years, but it did not work out. So what we decided was to then basically transform that live learning workshop that we recorded and make it into a climate change course. Granted, we probably need to be updating this regularly, so we might find information, if you look at it when we launch it in September, that we might find something that's like, oh no, that doesn't hold true anymore. You're probably right. Things move fast these days. So it will be something that will be updated, but also be publicly available. So we're excited that it will be public facing as well as internally, hopefully embraced, and the leadership will say and ask our workforce to actually take that course. It's also was translated in Spanish for accessibility, which is awesome. And so basically now the Green Stewards program is like the Thrive continuing education program. This is where we are right now. So we have a memo working up the ranks right now to hopefully ask department directors to identify 1 to 2 people per department to actually be a part of that Green Stewards cohort. And so with those people in that cohort, they'll go through monthly trainings. We've already written out the curriculum, come up with the topics for like the next year, and have content area experts and speakers come and give these trainings. And then kind of as the takeaway from those trainings is these e-checklists. So electronically distributed flyers, 1-2 page flyers that will have these lifestyle tips that will hopefully um, promote cultures of sustainability at the individual level so that it can impact how the workforce functions within Pima County as an employee, and then impact them as a citizen of Pima County. We just finished this like 2 month amazing effort of brainstorming these lifestyle tips. I kind of just threw out an invitation to a lot of different people within the county that I've come across with in one facet or another, and I'm like, hey, like we're working on this program. Can you help us brainstorm lifestyle tips to give out? And it's been so great. What ended up happening was every meeting became this like support group where people like took center stage and just spat out all these concerns and issues that they've seen within the county. We would have never known any of those things would have existed without giving them a space to talk and share. So that's another thing, definitely suggest moving forward, is not to skip the piece of getting input and feedback from other people. It is highly important, especially for those who are on the ground and with those sustainability lenses. So yeah, so that's basically what's going on right now. And yeah, that's all I have for you. Feel free to contact me. I just recently got married, so the email and the name don't match, but they will eventually. And so yeah, you can click that link, and I'll drop the link in the chat as well, so you can have access to all those documents. And if there's anything on there that you don't see, please feel free to email me. But I'm definitely open for questions. Grant, I am I'm very new to this, so when it comes to like the nitty-gritty details of things, I probably will have to get back to you. But I'm a researcher at heart, so I'll happily look up things, get you to the right people. But I'm happy to finally reconnect with this amazing group. So thank you again, Anne and Jenny and Lisa, for having me here.